The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine. The one and only Chael Sonnen. And you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Médaillé d'or et champion olympique, représentant les États-Unis d'Amérique. Gold medalist and Olympic champion, representing the United States of America.
E medalha de ouro, representando os Estados Unidos da América.
Helen Maroulis.
Now up on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, the Trailblazer, the first woman in American wrestling history to claim a gold medal in Olympic wrestling, Helen Maroulis. And Helen, as I play that clip for you, what goes through your mind when you know that you're the one who made history? You were the one that got to hear the anthem first.
It's incredible. It's amazing to hear the anthem. I'm so humbled and honored. Every time that I hear it, it just reminds me of everything that I've been through, and to have my family and my coaches there, and we could all hear it together. We all, get to take credit for that, for what it came of it. It's just amazing. And so many people poured into me over the years. And like I said, I know what it's like to have not had support. And I also remember what it was like when those first coaches or my parents or anyone just started to believe in me and to support me and to help me achieve this dream. And so that was, an anthem for them as much as it was for me.
Now you're out at a cafe right now. Are you getting recognized on the street right now? Like at any point?
Yes. Yes. Not like 24/7 and, not on some any crazy level, but it's been, I would say like once a day, which is really super surprising and weird.
Yeah, I'll wear like my Rio jacket. I wore it to preschool the other day to drop my daughter off, and it was like, "Oh, were you in Rio?" I was like, "Yes." It was like, "Oh, were you an athlete?" I'm like, "Oh no. This is not the look of an Olympic athlete." But when you're coming back, and now you've got this media tour, and actually even before that, you're still going to practice. You actually had to move our scheduled interview because you were afraid to tell Valentin Kaliki, your coach, that you wanted to move practice for an interview because you were afraid of asking.
Yeah, I have certain things that are non-negotiables, and I just feel like it wouldn't be right to ask my coach to move practice because I scheduled an interview. But again, like my lifestyle's crazy. I can't, we don't have a set practice time like every day at 4:00. It's just whenever partners can come in. So it's really hard for me to balance the training right now in the media because I have media stuff like scheduled on a set time and date. But I'm like, if my partner calls in and he can practice at that time, then, I have to make myself available. And again, the media is great, but, it's the wrestling that got me to, that got me this, that got me all of it. And so I, studied, I've actually been studying some stuff from Kobe Bryant, and I've, gotten some really great insight from from the water polo Olympic champions and from Kayla Harris, judo champion, just about like how do you balance everything, and especially when you go back to train again. So it's been really interesting. It's I'm definitely working through figuring everything out.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought of as soon as you said, okay, practice, and I was like, wait a minute, the Olympics were like just over a month ago. You're already back practicing. I mean, yeah, people expect you to take some time off. I mean, what is it, staying sharp? I mean, why back into practice so quickly?
Originally, the week before the Olympics, I was like ready to be done, but that's because I was just, it's a lot of stress. And then after, in my mind, I didn't know that life existed after August 18th. I really didn't have life planned after. But at the same time, I always imagined, well, when the Olympics are done, I'm going to have all this time for a break. I could take pretty much like almost a year off, or at least a couple months, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then it's like, it's just been nonstop media and trying to promote the sport and trying to just share my story and put wrestling on the map. And so it's, I just was definitely surprised. And so I haven't really taken a break yet. And that's kind of why I just thought, you know, am I trying to go back to wrestling because that's just what feels normal and comfortable? Or am I going back to wrestling because it's truly what I love to do? And so I haven't taken a break yet, but I'm just wrestling now because I really do love it. And it's like, you know, it's like a singer that loves singing. I mean, you don't need a stage to always sing. You can sing in your car, you can sing in the shower. And so for me right now, that's how I feel with wrestling. I mean, I really just love wrestling. I trained with my coach on the beach this morning. We're training on the mat in, 30 minutes to an hour. So it's, I'm doing it right now because I love to do it. It doesn't feel like work for me. And I'm still taking a vacation finally, in the, upcoming 2 weeks. So I'll still get my break.
Now, you've had a lot of media opportunities, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But with just the interview portion of it, I mean, you've given interviews since you were, in high school as the girl that was beating the boys and placing in the state tournament. But how much have you had to get better and more concise with how you say things? Because now it's not just it's not themat.com or a podcast. This is NBC. This is you're on television. It's national news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The interviewing is a big component, and I thank God that I think he prepared me for it in many ways. I mean, trial and error is always a great way to learn, but at the same time, I just pray before each interview, and I just kind of ask, just let me say what needs to be heard and what's truthful and honest, and please don't let me say something without thinking it through. And so been helping me so far. I think the only interview that I was just I have no idea what I said was directly after I won, and I really was speechless. It wasn't even a ramble. I mean, words just weren't getting put together correctly. So it's definitely going to be a learning process. I'd obviously like to get really better. I'd like to learn how to articulate everything, but at the same time, I still don't. Some questions that I get asked, how did you feel after this, or I can't even put things into words. Still, a month later after getting asked the question over and over again. So I don't know if I'll ever find the words for certain things.
I mean, there was a run there right after you won the gold where you're on the mat, you're crying. You're on the podium, you're crying. Mm-hmm. When did you stop crying? Because, I mean, every picture we saw, it was tears of joy everywhere.
Yeah, I'm definitely a crier. I cry watching Disney movies. I cry watching anything. So, when did I stop? Probably when I got tired. So. Yeah,
what Disney movie gets you every time?
Oh my gosh, I mean, literally, I cry the weirdest. I mean, I'll cry in Finding Nemo. I'll cry in Frozen. I'll cry in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, Monsters Inc. got me the other day as I was watching it with my daughter, and I'm not afraid to admit that. At the very end, where he opens the door, and and then I don't think All Dogs Go to Heaven. Is All Dogs Go to Heaven a Disney movie? I'm not quite sure.
Oh my God, I don't know, but that's a good one.
But the one at the very end where the little girl goes, "Charlie," I lose it every time. I mean, somebody can just tell me about that part, and I start welling up. But back to the let's talk about things that don't involve either of us crying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So things that made people smile was and made you cry was beating Saori Yoshida in the gold medal finals, and in two previous meetings. That were out of the practice room. You hadn't scored a point. You had gotten pinned, and then you lost, at the the 2012 Women's World Championships, the non-Olympic weights. And, where was between the first match and the second match, distance was closed. When did you realize that, I'm going to beat her. I am going to beat her. I am going to beat her someday.
It's a variety of things. I actually found someone had retweeted one of my old tweets, and it was from 2012, 2013, where I had tweeted about how I was studying film on her. So I was like, wow, I didn't even remember that. I knew I was studying her, but in my mind, I just kind of remembering back a couple of years, but I didn't know that. I didn't realize it'd been since the moment I lost to her. And even before I ever wrestled her, I mean, I was studying her. I paid attention to her because she's awesome. She wins everything, so why wouldn't you study and try and learn from her? I think what made the difference though, partly I think no matter what, I wouldn't have been able to do this, no matter how bad I wanted to beat her, without my team of coaches. My wrestling coach Valentin, my strength coach Charles, my nutritionist Eric, everyone that poured into me and helped me. But at the same time, I don't think I would have been able to find those coaches had I not really been like so committed to the goal. So I think losing to her, it was just like, there's got to be more than this. Is she really unbeatable? And the point of, sports, yeah, winning is great, but it's truly to, take on the challenge. And I thought that this would be the biggest challenge, and that would be great to experience. And when I decided, okay, I really want to try and beat her, that's awesome. But within myself and my resources, my tools, I didn't have enough to do it at the time. And that's where I'm like so thankful for the coaches that did help me, because they really made all the difference.
Do you recall the first time you discovered who Saori Yoshida was?
Yes.
What was the scenario around that?
So in 2008, I was 16. I moved away from home, and I was going to the Olympic Education Center to be like a developmental athlete. And I ended up trying out for the 2008 Non-Olympic World Championships, and I made the team. And so I got to go to Tokyo, and I wrestled 51 kilograms, and Yoshida was 55. But I saw, so that was the first time I'd seen her, and it was the first time I got on the senior scene, and right away it was just always buzz about the Japanese athletes. And we were in Tokyo, and we were, in their training center. And so I think right away I got, shocked and just really exposed to, okay, Japan's this country. They're dominating women's wrestling right now. I lost to a Japanese woman in the quarterfinals, who actually later went to win the Olympics at 48. And so it was just like everyone was good. And then in 2009, I didn't make the team. In 2010, I didn't either. And I went to the World Championships as a training partner. And again, the weight class that I tried out for, that's where Yoshida was, and she'd won the world. So she was on my radar like back in 2008, 2010. I mean, you don't enter women's wrestling and not know about Yoshida.
And when you look at the depth of the Japanese program, I mean, when there are greats retire, like when Sakamoto retires, or with her married name Obata, when they retire, they just plug it in. After she's gone, here comes Eri Tosaka. I mean, there is a machine of Japanese wrestling, and being an American with a very good wrestling program here, is there a level of intimidation, or is it a level of respect whenever you step on the mat with a Japanese wrestler, regardless of if it's Yoshida or if it's their number 2 or number 3?
I think growing up, it was both. I think the reason that we can be intimidated by them is because they have a program and a system that is way more advanced and more developed than ours. I mean, they have women wrestling in the youth ages, middle school, high school, university. It's like, it is an accepted sport. In the U.S., we don't even have 10 states with what state-sanctioned women's programs. So that's intimidating, because as a whole, as a country, we are behind them as far as developing the sport. But then when you look at performances, I think it's not intimidating, because I think we're very resilient. And so, yeah, it is more respect. They have a great style of wrestling. But when I was younger, obviously, I wasn't going to move away from home and have this crazy training lifestyle and everything. At 16, I couldn't do that. Now at 25, I can, make my own decisions. Okay, if I need to live in California to work with this coach, but have my same coach in Colorado, and okay, yeah, I can do that. So I think where we're being held back right now is that girls need the opportunities, and they need it at a younger age. That yes, you can train full time with wrestling. Yes, you can, pursue this as a career the way the Japanese women are doing it. So, I mean, I have respect for the athletes themselves and for the program, because I think that they're definitely investing in women's wrestling a lot more than the other countries, and that's why they're finding success.
We've started up the next season of WCWA. The women's college wrestling starts in October and finishes in late January, early February. And you went through this after leaving Marquette. You go to Missouri Baptist, then you end up at Simon Fraser, where Victoria Anthony came with you. And going through that college system, even though you were dominant, how much did that college system and that college schedule of women's freestyle and wrestling at a school that's had women's wrestling for a long time, how much did that really help you in your journey to Olympic gold?
Yeah, having the college system is extremely helpful, because how many parents in the U.S. are going to tell their daughters, don't, choose a sport that you can't compete in college and you can't get a scholarship in, and no parent's going to say that. So to have that college system, it provides a future for girls. Okay, if you want to go to school, you can get a scholarship, you can go to school, and then you can still wrestle and compete. The only thing that is hindered with that system now is that, well, what about girls that want to go to Ivy League schools or to, NCAA D1 schools, or they don't have the same opportunities. There's no women's wrestling program there. So right now, girls in the high school age are being pretty much forced to choose between their education or wrestling. And if you choose wrestling, well, then you have to pick, one of the private schools throughout the U.S. in a small town to go to school. And I didn't want to do that. I'm very fortunate that I was able to go to Simon Fraser University. I mean, I moved across the country and then into another country. So, but I don't know that many parents can afford to have their daughters do that or to make that sacrifice. And so I think the system's great for the girls that already know they want to make wrestling a priority. But it could be better in that if we added women's wrestling to D1 schools and, for Ivy League schools, then girls wouldn't have to choose between one or the other.
Now, Simon Fraser is also unique because they're a NCAA Division II institution that used to be competing fully in the Canadian Inter-University Sports System, the CIS. They come to Division II, and then all of a sudden there's another NCAA school that has women's wrestling, which helps move that needle towards emerging sports status. But it's also interesting where there's Americans on the team, but you've also got the Canadian women who grew up wrestling the freestyle and have they've got college options. What was it like in listening to their experiences is why they ended up at Simon Fraser and how you took a little bit more of a circuitous route to end up there?
Yeah, so what I loved about Simon Fraser University and the system in Canada is that they don't have an Olympic training center. So all the universities are pretty much considered regional training centers. And so people will just kind of, flock to one university and all of them are good because all of them are aiming to produce Olympic athletes after their university experience. And so I went to Simon Fraser, and there's Helen Garcia, who, took, I think, 5th or 7th at the Olympics this year. And he finished the college program. He's taking trained. Daniel Gawley, Olympic gold medalist from Canada, he went through Simon Fraser University. Carolyn, Canada's first gold medalist, she went through Simon Fraser University. And they all stay and they train there after. So it's good recruiting for a girl like me that, yes, I'm going to university, but it's also really, really good training because all these people are staying in the training there. And I think the U.S. has done that with their RTCs. But again, women's wrestling, we don't have RTC programs. And so that's why I chose. I knew I wanted to go to a big school. I knew I wanted to go to a good school. I didn't want to sacrifice that part of my education for wrestling, but I wanted to make them both work. I definitely didn't want to sacrifice wrestling either. So Canada was the best choice for me. You're
the third Olympic champion we've had on the program here since Rio. Kyle Snyder was on, Erica Wiebe from Canada was on, but Kyle told me a brief story, and I want you to expound on. You two guys were training partners at one point. Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm older than Kyle a little bit, but luckily back then he wasn't as big as he is now. But we actually both used to go to Mount Airy, and that was probably about an hour to an hour and a half drive away for both of us, but it was just the best program in Maryland. And the coach there, Mike Sarno, he was incredible, and he's produced many successful wrestlers. And so my mom would drive me there every day to train there, and there were a lot of guys that made long commutes. Kyle was one of them, and my mom remembers him being in the room and everything. And I was like, wait, we actually drilled together, but he's so big. So yeah, that's my memory.
And one thing I'll also remember, one of the first times I met you, the first time I met you was I think it was right after your sophomore year. You had this hate the world look sitting against the wall at BWI, the airport in Baltimore. And I was talking to Akil Patterson, who I've known for a long time. He's been a ref and wrestler there in Maryland. I was like, is that the Maroulis girl? He's like, yeah. I was like, she doesn't look very happy. He's like, yeah, she's cutting weight. So that was my first interaction with you. And then when I'm interviewing Nicole Woody, might have been that year, might have been a year later. I'm not quite sure the timeline, but she was like, shut up, I've got to watch Helen. Then you come off the mat, you win a title, you're both jumping around, and you've both got rubber chickens in your hand. It's a thing with Maryland that we need to bring back, in my opinion. But I was half expecting to see a rubber chicken fly out on the mat after you won in Rio. I mean, what's it like coming through Maryland? I mean, you get two Olympic champions from both Olympic champs from the U.S. or from the state of Maryland.
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember growing up, and Pennsylvania was always like one of the toughest, best wrestling states. And my mom used to always joke like, well, if you want to get your butt kicked, I'll just take you to Pennsylvania. And I remember all the Pennsylvania guys and Ohio guys and guys around the area would be like, oh, Maryland's not a good state. You know, it's not a great wrestling state, whatever. And so now Kyle and I were joking about it. We're like, yeah, Maryland, like finally. So it's cool. It's awesome.
Right now, since you've won the gold, you've got this media tour and you've had appearances and thrown out baseballs and things of that nature. But beforehand, a lot of the focus on the women's wrestling, Adeline Gray seemed to be the lightning rod for all of the media exposure, and she had the big interviews with ESPNW, and you had some work with the History Channel doing these short History Now segments. When you look at it maybe retrospectively, Adeline kind of taking the lead on the media stuff, did that give you more opportunity, you think, to focus on training? Or how do you think you might have done in going through that situation, be like, okay, if I had to do all these interviews, who knows how I would have done?
I know that Adeline made her own decisions for what she wanted to do. I don't know who was helping guide her in some of those decisions. I'm extremely thankful because in 2012, Elena Petrova, she, was the Olympian. She had almost beaten Icho. She was kind of, one of the favorites to win. And she said that she did all the media stuff. She said yes to everything. And she said by the time she got to the game, she was exhausted and she didn't even realize how much you just don't realize how much it burns you out. That's the thing. Like, you're giving energy to people that you can't get back. And I think Adeline, she doesn't have to cut a lot of weight, and she trains a little bit differently. So I think she could afford to say yes to those things. Elena, I got a lot of offers. I turned everything down because I'm really lucky that I had Elena to give me advice. And her exact words were, Helen, she's like, listen, the media, it'll always be there. She's like, they offer you and you feel like you want to say yes and you want to accept it. She's like, but listen, if you don't get a medal in Rio, they're gonna, they're gone in a heartbeat. She's like, so it'd be better to just say no to everything now, get the gold medal. And she's like, and everything's gonna come. She's like, you get a gold medal, maybe it's gonna come no matter what. So I was like, okay. So I think our program, women's wrestling, we just normally don't get a lot of exposure. So it's not that we don't really have like media training in the standpoint of, okay, when's your blackout period? When do you say no to things? When do you, prioritize training? And I think I'm really lucky that I had Elena to just be, a bigger sister mentor. And I said no to, I did the History Channel, and that was kind of my first taste of how taxing it is, because, their passion is getting this documentary done. So they're kind of pushing me, okay, film, like do more, do this. But my passion is wrestling. And so I'm like, I can't fault someone that, their priorities don't match up with mine. And that's why I was like, well, that's why I have to just say no to a lot of things that come my way. So the only things that I did were things that I'd previously given my my commitment on. So like, if I said yes, I'll see it through. But anything else that comes my way, I'm going to say no to. So I don't know if Adeline, I haven't talked to her about like if she felt run down for it or anything, but I think she made huge exposure and leaps and gains and change for women's wrestling. And she's so great at that. And I know she's got like a shoe outlet now, and that's being pushed by A6 Wrestling. And so just to see that support for women's wrestling and what she's doing in the sport is incredible. And I think it's definitely changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a single person I know that was talking to her that said, oh, that's not a good... No, she did great for women's wrestling as far as the media exposure goes. And now you know that's going to be coming as long as you're competing, because you're the first and only Olympic women's champion from the United States. So, when 2020 comes around, because I'm assuming you're going that far because you're not that old. So, I mean, it's safe to assume 2020?
Yeah.
So, the next time around, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more than just say, all right, I'm just going to do my History Channel thing. I mean, because, whether you like it or not now, you're the face of American women's wrestling because you've got that gold medal. You are proof that the kid that the parents say, well, there's no future in it, and all of a sudden there is a future in it, and you've got the gold medal. So there's, you've kind of going to be, you're going to be that poster on the wall for a lot of girls, and they want to hear you talk. I mean, how are you going to, I guess, cross that bridge when you get to it?
Yeah, definitely. My faith is really intertwined with my wrestling, and I did a lot of praying and seeking answers for how I wanted my career to go. And when I lost in 2012, it was really devastating. And I, just made a commitment that the next 4 years from 2012 to 2016, those are mine. Those are my years to be selfish. I'm not dating anybody. I'm not pursuing anything. It's school and it's wrestling, and that's it. And I'm going to do everything. If I have to move and, share a bed in a friend's, house, which is what Elena and I did for the last 2 years. And we trained on the beach, and we didn't have a wrestling room. We never had partners. I mean, it was crazy. And I was like, I will give everything to 2016 because I need to know, am I truly capable of giving my all? And is my all good enough to win? And so, it was a really great last 4 years. And I'm glad that it worked, and it gives me a lot of confirmation that I did a lot of the right things. But now it's a whole new 4 years of challenges, and I think it's different, and it should be different this time around. The last 4 years, I really need to be selfish and develop myself as a person and as a wrestler. These 4 years, I feel like I kind of want to take on more the role that I would say Elena took on for me, which is like a bigger sister, mentoring the younger girls, just and now with the media and stuff too, yes, I definitely think that there is a responsibility and a joy in being able to promote the sport, and that comes with being available and doing a lot of these media things. So I'm really excited to have these 4 years where, I do that. And again, it's the beauty of sport isn't going back to win another gold medal just for the sake of winning another one. It's what's the new challenges in this? Yeah, I could win it by shutting everything and everyone out, but can I also win it while also trying to promote the sport alongside it the whole time? And I think, God's timing is perfect. I don't think I've been ready to do it that way the last 4 years, but I feel like he's preparing me more and more. And every media thing that I've done just in this past month has taught me a lot about how do I want to schedule my time, or how do I want to plan things, or, do I want to do my workouts in the morning or at night after stuff, and what works best for me. And so I'm learning as I go, and it's a really cool experience, and I'm excited to take on that challenge. And I do think that for women's wrestling to grow, that I need to definitely be a part of that and help that movement as much as I can.
We haven't talked a whole lot about your actual performance in Rio outside of Yoshida, but one of the there are two matches. Obviously, the win over and I've got to be careful. See, I could not say North Korea while I was on the microphone. So the athlete from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, where you came from behind to win, and then there was Sophia Matson, who has been probably for a foreign wrestler, one of the women's wrestlers that American wrestling fans like to watch because, one, she's got almost an American folk style kind of style. I mean, she throws cradles out there. She's fun to watch, but you went out there and you just dismantled her. I mean, dismantle might even be putting it lightly. Is it Valentine? Is it the whole mentality? I mean, you just went out there and just blistered somebody that I expected to be a pretty close match. I mean, I thought you could win the match, but it was like, holy crap, she just beat the crap out of her.
Yeah, so my focus was being the strongest, best wrestler that I could be, and I was focusing on preparing for Yoshida. And but then when I actually went to Spain the month before the Olympics, Sophia was there, and we just drilled a little bit, and I was like, I'd beaten her early in November, and when I drilled with her in Spain, I was like, holy cow, this girl, she feels different. She's made some changes, and it was a huge wake-up call for me because I was like, okay, I think I've been focusing so much on the weight cutting and, kind of forgot that making weight isn't going to make you win the Olympics, and you still have to focus on the wrestling part. And so, so that was a really big wake-up call for me.
Now we're going to jump into the fun stuff that you've gotten to do, and I'm guessing a lot of these interviews, including this one, they're fun. But then there's the appearances, and these are some of the things that we've seen in social media. I mean, there's the Redskins, there's the Ravens, there's the Orioles, but the one that jumped out at me, and growing up on the East Coast and having access to this channel called Home Team Sports, which was big with the Baltimore Orioles back in the day, even though I'm not an Orioles fan, but it was the game with the Aberdeen Ironbirds, which is a minor league team, and you got to hang out with Cal Ripken Jr. This has got to, for somebody from Maryland, that's got to be just beyond words cool.
Oh, it was, it was definitely incredible. That was so amazing. I got to pick his brain about everything because, for how long he's been in the sport, I just, I asked him, how do you do it? How do you deal with the media stuff and keep training? And then you get older and you still kept your edge. And so I really got to learn so much from so many people. And Cal was definitely one of the best ones to talk to and pick his brain about that. And then we got to eat crabs too at a baseball game, which was again, all these crazy, amazing experiences.
Now, on Twitter, I noticed the other day you and Kyle Dake had gotten into a little discussion, or you had jumped into the singlet discussion, and that's one perspective that we haven't gotten in this whole, death of the singlet thing, or the move to change the singlet, is the women's perspective on it. And let's just go back in time to when you started wrestling. Was the singlet a deterrent for you, and have you found it to be a deterrent for young girls that are wanting to get into wrestling?
Yeah, so the singlet, I don't think twice about it now. When I was growing up, they only, had guys cut singlets because I was on an all-guys team, and so I remember having to wear a T-shirt under the singlet. And I was really uncomfortable, and it sucked, and I hated it, but I love the sport, so I put up with it. So, yeah, so with the whole singlet discussion, I feel like I kind of have a variety of viewpoints on it because of my experiences with an outfit that didn't really fit me.
Well, now they do have women's cut singlets, but we're still getting into the point where, we're talking about the boys being self-conscious about their bodies. And of course, that's something women deal with, even on in life. I don't think it's something that goes away. And my theory is okay, at the age group levels, and maybe even high school and below, we can go with something as a singlet alternative. Do you think that you might see more girls' participation if that the skimpy singlet was not necessarily the first choice of a uniform?
I don't know. I can't really say. I've never heard that girls aren't wrestling or getting into wrestling because of the singlet. But I think when we think about wrestling and we take gender aside and we think, well, what's the purpose of wanting a lot of people to join wrestling, is I think the main reason should be that we think it's an amazing sport. It teaches incredible values and instills hard work, and who would not want their child to do it? And so then you look at, well, okay, if a parent's giving their kid a choice on what sport they want to do, and a kid's going to be self-conscious about the singlet, why not start with shorts and T-shirts, and then when that kid grows up to be, a grown man with a jacked body, and then all of a sudden he is happy with his body because of how it's been shaped by wrestling, I don't think he's going to care whether he's wearing a singlet or board shorts at the beach or a shirt and T-shirt when he wrestles. And so I think the same thing for me as a girl. You can put me in a singlet when I'm 7 because I didn't think twice about, body image then. And now it's like, I did a photo shoot the other day, and they asked me to put a singlet on, and they only had an extra small singlet for me. And I was like kind of self-conscious because I'm like, I competed, 20 pounds lighter than what I am right now, and I got to put this tight singlet on. And so I think that the people that are saying those that are self-conscious about it shouldn't be in the sport, I'm like, well, I just did everything that I wanted. I achieved my dream in this sport, and that still didn't mean that the next time I put a singlet on, I wasn't going to be a little self-conscious in it. I mean, it is what it is, and I don't think it's a big deal either way. I don't think me feeling some way about my body on certain days defines who I am or what kind of self-image I have.
All right. Well, that's just an interesting viewpoint we haven't heard, because typically you don't hear the women speaking out on the whole singlet argument. You get athletes, you get coaches, you get old school coaches. I mean, it's the male side of the equation. Now, moving on to the fun part of the interview. This is the last part. It's called Short Time. It's 10 questions. I'm going to blast them at you in 90 seconds. I don't want you to think too hard about them. This is the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready to roll?
I don't know. I'm an overthinker, but I'm going to do my best to make it quick.
Yeah, just don't think about it. Just go.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay, question 1. What's the best match you've ever watched?
Ever watched?
Yes.
I have no idea. Nothing comes to mind. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at this.
Okay, how many times have you watched your match with Yoshida again?
Oh, probably like 15.
So that's probably the best match you've ever watched, right?
Well, I'm critical. I'm watching it. I'm watching it with a different goal in mind. I'm watching it and thinking, okay, how is someone going to watch this and try and make a game plan for me? How do I make a game plan for myself? So right. I'm looking for something else.
All right. That's the longest answer to so much for this rapid fire thing. All right. Question 2. Question 2.
I warned you I wasn't good at this.
You won the Olympic gold. What did you have for dinner?
What NBC brought me, which was a plate of French fries and pizza and chocolate.
Who's the best wrestler people don't talk about?
people don't talk about. Seiko Yamamoto.
Your all-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
The blue.
Your favorite wrestling movie?
Movie? Oh gosh, Vision Quest. Foxcatcher was good too, but Vision Quest is an oldie.
Your favorite international wrestler outside of yourself?
Wouldn't that be national as well? Favorite international wrestler? I guess Yoshida.
If you win the Powerball, what's the first college wrestling program you're going to start?
I'm going to start the whole NCAA Division I women's program.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, Redskins or Ravens?
Ravens.
Nationals or Orioles?
Ooh, Nationals.
Yeah, good thing we've done this.
Why make these decisions?
Well, we've done this after you've done already the appearances, so you don't have to worry about that anymore.
I know. I feel bad for it. Everyone was so nice. I just have to say every single team was so nice. So.
All right, favorite cartoon character?
Favorite cartoon character? I just have a favorite Disney movie.
Go ahead. What's that one then?
Frozen and Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. I own Frozen, and I saw actually a musical of Beauty and the Beast, so I'll give you both of those. And finally,
oh my gosh,
what is your spirit animal?
Panther or jaguar.
Well, fierce cat, whatever it is, it works. All right, Helen, you are off the hook. We are all done. Last bit of the show, just any final words, sponsor thanks, people thanks. You just want to throw out there that you haven't said enough.
Oh my gosh, the list is endless. Well, first I want to thank my sponsor, Sunkist, my coaches, Valentine, my strength coach, Charles Poliquin, Eric Arvello, nutritionist, Dr. Andy Galpin, my parents, my family, my boyfriend, everyone that supported me from the USA, Terry Steiner and the whole national team staff. Oh gosh, so many people. I feel like I'm forgetting. Just everyone, so many people. Kevin Black, Larry Bry, everyone that helped me mentally prepare. And so many people don't even know how they helped just by saying a couple kind words here or there or wishing me well or anything. I mean, it's incredible. You know, you're having a bad day and someone just kind of says something positive and they don't even realize the impact that it had on you. So I've definitely been around a lot of great people and I've been influenced in the best way.
You want to talk about a fantastic young woman, Helen Maroulis, just an outstanding person and personality and a great person to carry the flag and the gold of being the first American woman to win a gold medal in wrestling. And I'm not kidding when I say this, folks. I've said this on countless shows already. I've said it on Kyle Klingman's show. I've said it on World Wrestling Resource, that the fact that Helen now has given our American women and our young girls, my daughters, I have 2 daughters, that has given them another hero to root for, just like I've mentioned with Mia Hamm and Serena Williams and any player, Maya Moore, who is playing for the Minnesota Lynx here in the WNBA up in Minnesota. I just say that because they're fresh on the mind because they are in the WNBA finals. I don't think we've got too much crossover fans between the WNBA and this program. However, the fact is we've got our daughters now with heroes. We've shown it. Helen talked about her parents saying that there was no future in wrestling. Well, now that it became an Olympic sport, they saw a future there, so they let her pursue it. And whether or not your daughter, your niece, your cousin, you know, my daughter, your granddaughter, whatever, whomever, just in whatever sport they decide to pick, it's just great to have that option from an American wrestling standpoint, from a wrestling standpoint. So big props to Helen. It was a busy time. We actually had to piece that together in 2 different interviews, and you didn't know that because I'm good like that. Yep, we're good here on the Matt Talk Podcast Network. And Helen, yeah, the 3rd Olympic champion we've had in the past month here on the program. So we've had 3 Olympic gold medalists and a UFC heavyweight champion. So it's been a pretty good month. Not to mention the Don Garriott episode for Cerritos College, the head wrestling coach out there in California. That's doing great. So I'm really, really happy with the response you guys are giving the coach at Cerritos and that league entirely. Because I'll be honest with you, outside of John Sachs in his CACC wrestling website and Tony Rotundo taking pictures out there as well, without those 2, you're pretty much the only guy you're going to get any California college wrestling stuff outside of the state of California is this program, is Mad Talk Online. So it makes me feel good that to see when I try to be an advocate for the sport of wrestling and say, okay, this is something you should be paying attention to. This is something you need to be aware of, and to get the response like it has. I'm tip of the cap to you guys for listening it, because I know that when you see a title, you do not have to click play. You do not have to listen to each and every episode if it doesn't interest you. That's the glorious thing about a podcast. I subscribe to over 100. And if I see a guest on a show that I typically listen to, I listen to Chael Sonnen's show all the time. But, usually when he's got guys that have MMA, if there's comedians or people that I have an interest in, I'll listen to it. But I don't typically listen to every single show. I mean, he puts out 3 a week. This network puts out anywhere from, 6 to 10 a week. So I can understand skipping episodes. So the fact that you guys press play on Coach Garriott's interview really honestly makes me feel good. I would appreciate you go back and check out Erica Wiebe from Canada, because the Canadians, actually you Canadians up there, you crushed Corey Jarvis's interview, and you're leaving Erica out to dry here. The Americans have really been picking up the slack with the Erica Wiebe story. Of course, Stipe Miocic, we've had Kyle Snyder on, and then Richard Immel's coming up on the program. If not this week, not next week. Well, we are getting our picks together, and the picks for those who entered the Olympic contest. So I've got my swag bag ready to go for the winner. We got to tabulate the votes. We did not forget about you. Trust me, folks. We did not forget about you. And I want to say thank you before we move on further in the program to those who did leave ratings and reviews for my plea for International Podcast Day. Believe it or not, I got called in got called in from the bullpen to host a 1-hour session. I was dropping Lucy off at preschool. She goes to preschool 3 days a week, and I got a Facebook message right away from one of the coordinators of International Podcast Day as I was dropping my daughter off, and she goes to school probably about 2 miles from here, so it's not a big deal. It's like 9:45, and it's like, hey, we had a guy that couldn't make it at 10 o'clock. You want to jump in? Sure, no problem. Jumped in. Guess what? For the entire hour, I got to talk about wrestling. But I also made it a way that non-wrestling people, these podcast nerd friends of mine, yes, because I are a podcast nerd, and you listening to the show means you probably are a podcast nerd too. So more power to you there. But I got to talk about wrestling for the entire hour, and then people coming on after me. Some of you may be familiar with a guy named John Lee Dumas, who does a very popular podcast, EO Fire, formerly known as Entrepreneur on Fire, and he is kind of the model that a lot of these people get into. He's big into the entrepreneurial space and the marketing space. So, he came in right after my session and frequently mentioned it. So that is one thing that we can, this podcast thing, yes, we are pushing the sport of wrestling in this new medium. And again, with the 14 active shows here on the Mad Talk Podcast Network. And I thank each and every one of you for listening. Of course, this is the flagship show, but opportunities like that for me to jump into, with what was a worldwide audience. It really was, because this thing went for 30 hours. It had people from all around the world hosting sessions, and I was just one of those ones. I got called in last second, talked about the foundation of this network, talked about the formation of this network, and why I got it started. So it was an opportunity really to put wrestling in right there. I mean, people can't, when people mention my name and with podcasting, and this happens frequently now, they're mentioning, wrestling, and they mention the website. So we're getting an opportunity to expand wrestling beyond its traditional borders, and it's a space that people listen to things. I got people listening to my show not because they're wrestling fans, but because of the guests. They want to hear from Olympic champions. We've got it. They want to hear from UFC champions. We got it. They want to hear from actors. And one thing I know, Nate Parker has been in the news of late. Hopefully because of the movie The Birth of a Nation that he's been putting out. But unfortunately, some things from his past have resurfaced 17 years ago. And just the guy's already gone through it once. Let's just let it go, folks. He's already been found not guilty. Let's not harp on it. I got some real problems with what they're doing to Nate Parker here. And I'm not just saying that because he's a friend of mine. And I've known him since we were basically a year out of high school. I mean, he was in high school. I was a freshman at ODU. We've known each other for almost 20 years. So let the man's film win some awards. Don't try to tear him down, because he's already been through that. He's already been through it. So that being said, my point is people listen to this show for more than just wrestling. So those of you wrestling people out there, most of you, 99% of you wrestling people, just love it, love it, love it. I don't know if it's the content or if it's the quality of the host here in the Mad Talk Podcast Network or the dapper tones of my fake radio voice. This is not Casey Kasem. I am in a studio in my basement. That's exactly what you might expect. Let's see. I don't really have any other news to throw at you. Kind of touched on things more or less about this program. Oh, yeah. You like the show and you're hitting play on the website? I'd invite you to find the subscribe button. You go to matttalkonline.com/listen. There's a bevy of ways you can subscribe and get this show automatically. There's a free iOS app. There's a free Android app. It is on iTunes. It is on iHeartRadio. It is on Stitcher. It is on Spreaker. I'm probably going to pull it off of SoundCloud here before too long because I honestly freaking hate SoundCloud. It is a terrible platform for podcasters, and it's awful. I've moved 5 or 6 people from SoundCloud to Libsyn, and they have been like, oh, this is great. So, I don't like SoundCloud. I'm even on Mixcloud. I mean, there's like 3 people that listen to me on Mixcloud. This show's also on YouTube. Yeah, the Jason Bryant channel, which is actually I couldn't change the URL. It's still the old Wrestling 411 YouTube channel, which, you know what? I still got it. Oh, well, whatever. So if you like the show or any of the shows, hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and review. But if you really like the network, you really like this stuff, and you want to keep the lights on, you want to see me continue to get fantastic guests. And I tell you, folks, I've been working on this digital, not the Almanac. I'm going to have to come up with a different name. Yeah, because there's the Fargo Almanac, and then there's the Championship Preview Guide. Well, I'm working on this subdomain that is my research site. And you can get access to my research site by becoming a $5 a month patron of this program by going to matttalkonline.com/join the team. What you get, the stats that I've got on this site that you can, this is not a public thing. This is basically my sandbox where I get to play, where I look up all my stuff. If I need to find something, you'll get access to it. Ooh, sound. Oh, how do you know all that? I don't necessarily know everything all the time, but I definitely know where to look it up because I've done the research to get it. You can get access to that. That's a perk. Certain levels of giving, you get the guide, the almanac, and the digital preview guide. Now, I think that's at the $10 level. You have to check that at the matttalkonline.com/join the team link. There's also t-shirts involved, draft glasses, hats, stickers. You get a nice little fun bag. I said fun bag. You get a nice little swag bag of stuff when you hit certain levels of giving here with the network. So I want to thank you, those of you who are long time now patrons. And we've got another set of gear going out in the coming days. I want to thank Cliff Fretwell and his crew at Compound at cmpteamwear.com. Let's get your team outfitted this season with the slickest gear on the planet. Custom gear, sublimated singlets, cool socks. I mean, all the stuff the kids are wearing these days. Yeah, they've got it. Cliff's got the best design team on the freaking planet. They're gnarly good. Really good. cmpteamwear.com. Or if you want to let them know that you're coming from me, go to matttalkonline.com/teamwear. That will actually send a little note, be like, hey, this is the link I clicked on. So, yep. Tampa Bay won tonight, as I'm recording this on late Monday night. I'm a Bucs fan. Somebody was saying, man, if I was a Bucs fan, I'd be upset they fired Lovie Smith. Listen, I've been a Bucs fan since the 80s. We're constantly in a state of upset. So, nothing new there. They won a Super Bowl, so I can die happy. Anyway, that's what I got today. I spent a lot of time watching football this weekend, helping my neighbor put up a basketball hoop, and you've been spending nearly the last hour with me, and I thank you very much for it each and every week, sometimes twice a week, and sometimes twice on Monday. I don't know where this stuff's coming from. It's the deep, dark passages in my head that are filled with the who knows what. Thank you. You're awesome. Thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to matttalkonline.com.